sky of Henchman Street between these two buildings. Up in the sky, folks, that is the steeple of the Old North Church. That is where they hung the lanterns to warn everybody the British soldiers were on the march to Lexington and Concord on April 18, 1775, the day before Patriots' Day, the day that would effectively begin the American Revolution that morning. Now, back to Paul Revere. Now, he was a busy man, obviously, but he was busy in more ways than that. He's also quite the entrepreneur. He's a silversmith, blacksmith, coppersmith, goldsmith, bell ringer, bell caster, and a part-time dentist. But we here in the United States render him this. Why? He's one of the main carriers for the Sons of Liberty. In fact, how does that point go? It says, "Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride." Oh, indeed, my friends. So in just a few moments, we are going to discuss Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. But before we do that, we're about to come to stop number 2. Number 2 is going to bring us to Paul Revere's house, the Old North Church. Or if you're just exploring the North End, maybe go to Mike's Pastry on Hanover Street for the best cannoli ever. Get the peanut butter filled one. So ladies and gentlemen, we're about to roll into stop number 2. Now, folks, whenever you hop off the trolley, if you're never quite sure about where to hop back on, always look for one of two things or both things. Look for our trolley sign or an orange and black decal wrapped around the nearest pole, or in this case, both. So ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be our stop number 2. We're going to pull just a little bit beyond the sign because of the funeral procession. This is our stop number 2. Y'all like my stories? All right. All right. Let me check something real quick. All right. Well, I don't see anyone coming for us. So let's put an egg in our shoe and beat it. Let's go. Now, folks, I promised y'all we would talk about the midnight ride. Now seems to be a good time to do so. I want y'all to picture Boston, April 1775. British soldiers are everywhere. They know a fight's coming because little militias have started forming all over the Massachusetts Bay Colony in retaliation for Boston being under siege. Now, by April 18th, the soldiers learned the two leaders of the rebellious group, the Sons of Liberty, Sam Adams and John Hancock. They are hiding out in the town of Lexington, about 15 miles northwest of here. But ultimately, in the little town of Concord near it, there was a huge ammunition supply being stored for these local militias. On April 18th, over 700 British soldiers set out to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They're going to march to Lexington to hopefully arrest Adams and Hancock. But then it's on to Concord for the primary objective, capture and destroy the ammunition. They want to put this insurrection to bed before it becomes a full-out war. But the Sons of Liberty had a great spy network, knew exactly what they were up to. And Paul Revere was one of the Sons of Liberty. They watch all day on the Boston Common to determine which direction those soldiers are going to go their march. Once they had it figured out, they had the signal placed in the steeple of the Old North Church to warn everybody. Now with the signal been set, Paul Revere, he has to get out and help warn the countryside. He's going to start in Charlestown, so he's got to cross this harbor here on my right to get there. One little problem. The British warship Somerset is also in that water. Crossing was not allowed that time of night. They're daring anyone to try it. Well, guess what? The Sons of Liberty, they dare. And what they did was they mumbled their oars together. So very quietly, in the middle of the night, undetected, they safely rowed all across this water here into Charlestown. He borrowed a horse named Brown Beauty from a man named Deacon Larkin. And that, folks, is when Paul Revere starts his famous midnight ride. Whoa. By the way, that's the actual audio of Paul Revere's voice. Only Captain Matt gives you authentic 1775 audio. Great pathway that's been following us. You know, the land of Oz has a yellow brick road. But here in the land of Boston, I tell Dorothy you gotta follow the red brick road. That, of course, is our Freedom Trail. It's 2.5 miles long, starts on Boston Common, and it concludes here in Charlestown at the Bunker Hill Memorial. There are 16 stops along the way that show very pivotal moments of American history that happened here in Boston. Beautiful day like today, I definitely recommend if not all, of the Freedom Trail, because it really is amazing to see the history. It's great exercise, and if you walk it without a tour guide, it's free. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we're going to be approaching our stop number 3. Number 3 is going to bring us to the Charlestown Navy Yard, the Bunker Hill Memorial, and last but not least, Old Ironsides. I ain't talking about Raymond Burr. I'm talking about the oldest steel commission floating warship on Earth, the USS Constitution. Now, unfortunately, folks, it is Monday. Constitution is not open for tours on Monday. She is closed on for tours. You can go up to her, you can see her, just cannot go on board for a tour. However, the museum will be opening at 10 o'clock. It is free admission. There is a recommended donation in order to make sure those doors do remain open. And if anyone is going to Bunker Hill, it's a little bit more than a 5-minute hike up the Freedom Trail to get to the monument. So, ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we're going to be at our stop number 3, Charlestown. Navy Yard here. It still is an active Navy Yard to this day. And we are going to be parking up next to Old Ironsides herself. So again, folks, if anyone is going to Bunker Hill, it's just a little bit more than a 5-minute hike to get to that monument. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is my stop number 3. This is Charlestown. Hi, folks. Good morning. Coming to play? Come on in. Who's our ticket bearer this morning? All right, fantastic, sir. When we get to stop 1, we'll exchange it for your normal ticket.
First time I came here, the band's all covered in plastic.
Welcome you two. I'm Captain Matty, so very glad to have y'all this morning. Alright folks, it's time for a quick safety reminder. This is going to come from my friend Jack. Please pay attention for me.
Hey, Jack here. You want the truth? Can you handle the truth? Well, ain't this grand? We're on the ride of our lives, man. Listen, you better stay in your seats. And hey, no smoking or booze on this ride. This ain't the 60s, you know. And listen, try to keep your arms, legs, and the rest of your body parts inside at all times. You might want to keep an eye out for low-hanging branches. You wouldn't want to get slapped by one now, would you? Get a cuckoo's nest right on your head.
All right, thank you, Jack. All right, folks, let's take one more pretty look at that pretty boat, the USS Constitution, built in 1797, made by President George Washington himself. She is the oldest steel commission floating warship on Earth. As long as she makes 1 nautical mile under her own power every year, she is allowed to keep her commission with the United States Navy. She also happens to be the undisputed, undefeated warship champion on Earth. Over 30 battles, 0 defeats. Now, she got her nickname Old Ironsides during the War of 1812. She's fighting a ship called the HMS Carrier. Sunk the ship, had it burned in under 35 minutes. Some of the sailors were watching that battle. They said it looked like the cannonballs were just bouncing off Constitution. They said, huzzah! Her sides must be made of iron! The truth is, her sides ain't made of iron, they're made of live Georgian oak. And being a good Southern boy, I appreciate good, strong Southern wood. That's our contribution. But y'all know what? The name stuck. She is forevermore Old Ironsides. Right in the distance, y'all, is the beautiful Bunker Hill Monument. Only 294 steps to the top of the monument. Unfortunately, there's no elevator, so it is 294 back down. But hey, if you can make it to the top of that circular staircase, look what a view you're going to get. All right, folks, real quick, let's test y'all's American history knowledge. I think y'all got this. True or false? The Battle of Bunker Hill took place on Bunker Hill. That is false, yep. Was fought next door on Breeds Hill, where the monument is standing. Let's do one more. or false? The Battle of Bunker Hill was a huge victory for the Americans. That is false. It wasn't a defeat. However, I do want to put an asterisk mark next to that. Not to take anything away from the British, but we here in the United States, we do consider the battle a morale victory. It was the first major battle of the American Revolution. We had a group of soldiers. Frankly, they were not even soldiers. They're farmers and doctors and lawyers. Men who could shoot a gun, but not yet professionally trained fighters. They took on the most powerful army on earth at that time, the British Empire. They did it where that monument stands on June 17, 1775. There are about 2,400 of these volunteer men from all over New England. There were over 3,000 highly trained British soldiers. Now, despite all this, even though the Americans would be defeated, they ran out of ammunition, they had to retreat to Cambridge. But in so doing, it took those British soldiers, not once, not twice, it took them 3 tries to finally storm the hill and claim victory. But not before they lost over 1,000 men in the process, either the death or third their fighting force that day. The Americans, 450. So we do say it served as the morale victory. It showed the underdog could do it. It showed the revolution could be won. And several years later, the war was won. Now, folks, don't let your eyes deceive y'all. There's only one Bunker Hill monument here in Boston. The two in the distance, those are the twin spires of the Zakim Bridge, also known as Bunker Hill Bridge, the never symbol Bunker Hill Monument. That bridge is the crown jewel of the Big Dig project, one of the most massive project undertakings in United States history, outside of the Panama Canal. What it did was it relocated all of that major highway, that's I-93. Originally, I-93 was going above Boston, literally above, built on rises, but it was causing huge traffic flows, huge amounts of trash and garbage all underneath the rises all over the city. It was horrible. Well, thanks to the Big Dig, the entire interstate now runs underneath the city of Boston, giving us the intricate tunnel system to use that major artery, I-93. That bridge was the crowning achievement. The bridge's namesake, Zakim. Zakim was a Jewish civil rights activist from Boston. He fought extremely hard against racism and bigotry here in the United States. Now, granted, his name is not as mainstream and well-known as other civil rights leaders, but his work did not go unnoticed, especially by the Catholic Church. In fact, the Church awarded him the highest honor that can be given to a layperson, the knighthood of St. Gregory. And obviously, Boston did not ignore his works. They immortalized him by doing a beautiful bridge in his honor. Very grateful for the Big Dig, especially in regards to the traffic. Before the Big Dig, an average daily commute in and out of Boston could have been up to 3 hours. But thanks to the Big Dig, an average daily commute is only 2 hours and 45 minutes. Now, folks, over here on my left, there's a tan building with red trim windows very close to the water's edge. It's the skate center. Now, the skate center was not always there. What used to be there was a gigantic vat of molasses for the local alcohol distillery company, until a little unfortunate accident. On January 15, 1919, one of the main cylinders of this poorly constructed vat could no longer handle the pressure it was under. It failed, which caused the entire vat to spill and burst, which causes 2.3 million gallons of nearly boiling molasses in the shape of a wave 40 feet high, 90 feet wide, going 35 miles per hour. Molasses completely flooded this place. You think molasses run slow in January? Think again. Unfortunately, folks, 21 people lost their lives in that incident, and over 150 more were seriously injured. Y'all, more people have lost their lives to molasses than coyotes here in the United States. It cost millions of dollars damage, which today would equate to about $100 million in today's dollars. It also did result in the first group action lawsuit in the United States history. Today, we remember the event as the Boston Massacre. It was a sneaky situation, but what a sweet way to die. I got plenty more to some fun stuff. Let's talk about the home of the 17-time world champion Boston Celtics, yay Larry Bird. Also, it's the home of the 6-time Stanley Cup winners, the Boston Bruins, yay Bobby Orr. The people of Boston refer to this building as the Vatican. Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching stop number 4, the Garden. Not the garden, They got it. I've been corrected too many times. Stop 4 is coming up, folks. This will be for the guide, the pro shop, the sports museum, the North Station, and the Museum of Science. Going to give y'all a really great shot of the Zakim Bridge in just a moment. Boston Bonanza. And I don't see anyone else coming, so let's get buttered up and on a roll. Here we go. Folks, friendly reminders, when my trolley's moving, just remain seated at all times. Keep hands and arms inside the trolley at all times. No smoking, no drinking alcohol, unless you're on up for everybody. And folks, please go ahead and keep those conversations to a whisper so everyone can hear my pretty voice. We are leaving the garden. It is the home of the Bees and the C's, the Bruins and the Celtics. Now, there is one Bruin in particular the city of Boston will forever sing the praise of, Mr. Bobby Orr, one of the greatest hockey players of all time, played for the Bruins there in the 1960s and 70s. As a matter of fact, at this next stoplight, here we have a statue of him over here on my right-hand side. Now, I know that statue looks kind of awkward. It's actually done in honor of a very famous photograph of Bobby. It was the 1970 Stanley Cup Final, the Boston Bruins versus the St. Louis Blues. Now, Boston has won 3 games in a row. One more game, Boston wins the Stanley Cup. Well, in sudden death, double overtime in Game 4, the score is locked up 3-3. Bobby Orr scored the game-winning goal, giving the Bruins the victory and their Stanley Cup. I've watched the footage numerous times. It looks most likely to be that Noel Picard, the guy guarding Bobby, got so frustrated when Bobby Orr scored, he took his hockey stick, tripped him up. Bobby Orr went flying through the air. And there was a photographer there at just the right moment to capture Bobby flying through the air. This statue here on the right is done in honor of that photograph. That statue is called the Goal. And that goal sounded exactly like this.
Orr fights to keep it in. Does. Has it in the corner to Sanderson. Back in front to Orr. Shot. Score! Bobby Orr from Sanderson! And with the lead on that, as they beat St. Louis 4-3. Orr to Sanderson, back to Orr, and they go wild.
And the city of Boston still goes wild 51 years later, whenever that audio clip or that video clip plays on NESN, New England Sports Network. Good. The West End, or as I like to say, the West Side. Now, folks, the West End is actually home to the government buildings here in Boston. For example, here on the right, our federal building. This is the Thomas Tip O'Neill Federal Building, named in honor of the famous Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Tip O'Neill. Became a Boston man after all. Made a great cameo on Cheers once, too. I just wish they had put a little bit more red in this building in honor of his nose, because it was legendary. And for those keeping count, this is our 4th Dunkin' Donuts since leaving stop number 1. The goal is to get to 23 by the time we get back to stop number 1. Good luck. So, folks, we are in the West End. Now, it was not always the home for government buildings. For the longest time, just like the North End, this was home for many various immigrant groups. Jewish, Irish, Albanian, many various groups lived throughout the West End. Now, this was a very, very poor neighborhood. They had to put their differences aside and work together. But because it was such a poor neighborhood, it oftentimes had a lot of questionable activity. It got to be so bad. In the 1950s, the city of Boston decided they were going to clean up the West End. So how'd they clean it up? For 2 weeks, they stopped collecting trash. They just let the trash pile everywhere. The health inspectors were sent in. They had to declare the West End a slum. No one could safely live here. They forcibly removed everyone. There was a promise of restoration with affordable housing. But unfortunately, Boston seized the land, built these government buildings, built the expensive high-rise condos before us. And I am sad to report, none of those families were restored as promised. Boston really doesn't like me to tell that story, folks, but when it comes to history, you've got to hear the whole story. Not just hear one side. To understand how we got here and why we are here. Number 5. There's a lot to see, a lot to do, and a lot to eat. I'll try to cover it as best I can. First off, friends, over here on my left, we have the Bell and Ann Tavern. It is the oldest continuously ran bar in the United States. Been in business since 1795. And after you've had a drink, walk next door to my favorite restaurant in town, the Union Oyster House, which is the oldest continuously ran restaurant in the United States. It's been in business since 1826, and it's where the toothpick was invented. Seriously. Folks, you might notice these 6 glass towers. This is the New England Holocaust Memorial. The towers are designed to look like chimneys in honor of the 6, I shouldn't say in honor, but it's for the 6 concentration camps. They look like chimneys with smoke billowing out of them. Inscribed on each chimney are 1 million 7-digit numbers. That is to honor the 6 million Jewish lives that were lost in that event. Now, folks, as I approach this stoplight, keep your eye on the sky here on the left, because you're about to see a little golden grasshopper. The grasshopper weather vane is on top of this red brick building here on my left, Faneuil Hall. In my opinion, one of the most important buildings of our United States history. Faneuil Hall, built in 1742. Given as you get to the city by its founder, Peter Faneuil, he had one condition. All public forum events held there had to be free to the public. But at that Faneuil Hall, many of the meetings by the Patriots initially took place, and their decisions to rebel, to go against their own mother England and fight back. They started at Faneuil Hall. It's why we call it the Cradle of Liberty. If not for the first meetings held at Faneuil Hall, I'm willing to bet there's a chance the United States would not exist. The ideas of revolution may have never been discussed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching what I consider the most important stop on my trolley tour, stop number 5. Number 5 will bring us to Faneuil Hall, Faneuil Hall Marketplace with Quincy Market, Union Oyster House, Bell and Ann Tavern, the New England Holocaust Memorial, the cemeteries where the Patriots are buried, not the New England Patriots. Thank God they got buried yesterday. No, people like Sam Adams and Paul Revere, those Patriots. Finally, this old but powerful building here on my right, now an incredible museum, the Old State House. This is where on March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre took place. In fact, there's a large granite stone circle on the ground behind those 3 planters that serves as a marker and memorial. So, folks, ladies and gentlemen, is our stop number 5. Folks, again, I do want to sincerely apologize. Both the cities of Boston and Cambridge have shut down our stop number 6 due to the construction going on the bridge. They will not allow us to cross the bridge to get there. Otherwise, this becomes a duck boat tour, and I'm not quite ready for that. So for safety's sake, we are going directly to stop number 7. Again, if you do want to see the sights of Cambridge, I definitely recommend our next stop of number 7. It's very easy access into Cambridge. Plus, if you were going to Harvard anyway, it's still 2 miles from our stop number 6. Your best bet for the Harvard is that we'll take the Red Line subway. It's a direct line there. It's much cheaper than a cab and much cleaner than a cab. So definitely consider the Red Line. And just let me know if you have any questions. So folks, as I mentioned rolling in, this is the site of the Boston Massacre. It happened right here in this area on March 5th, 1770. Now, the events that led up to it. For the previous 2 years, since 1768, British soldiers had been filing into the American colonies, helping local lawmakers reinforce acts being passed by Parliament. Later on here in Boston, after the Tea Party, they start calling them the Intolerable Acts, ways of raising prices and taxes on everyday goods and services to pay off debt. So needless to say, the sight of these British soldiers reinforcing these very unpopular acts, they were not exactly a welcome sight in the colonies, especially here in Boston. And on March 5th, 1770, it came to a boil-over. Now, folks, just behind us on our right shoulder, in 1770, that was the location of Boston's custom house, where customs was. And a young British soldier was on duty at the custom house. A young man came over and started to harass that soldier's superior officer. He was claiming the officer had never repaid his master a few days prior for fixing his wig. When in fact the officer had settled the debt, so the officer had ignored the gift. The young soldier, however, was not. This soldier's a young guy. He's probably not even 21. He's full of testosterone. He's not going to take lip from that kid. He goes over and he tells him, "You need to be respectful of my superior." They get into a fight, which ends with the soldier taking his gun to the boy's head, knocking him to the ground. The boy goes off crying. All the people of Boston have just witnessed this British soldier do that to that young man. And boy, they start letting him have it. They're insulting him, calling him a lobster bag, throwing snowballs at him. 50 people quickly escalate into 100 people. The soldier is getting nervous. Well, over time, Captain Preston and his squad of soldiers arrive on the scene. They come to the soldiers' defense. They don't want to try to break the crowd up, send everybody home. This only further antagonizes the crowd. Now they're throwing ice. Now they're throwing oyster shells. And the fishermen and rope makers, they would use clubs to beat out rope. I'm willing to bet clubs were on the scene. There are hundreds of people everywhere. Now all of a sudden, church bells start ringing. When church bells ring in 1770 Boston, it means one of two things. It's time for church, or there's a fire. Well, it ain't Sunday. Church bells are ringing and people are yelling, "Fire! Fire!" The soldiers' ears were perked up. They're young, they're nervous. Captain Preston is in front of his troops saying, "Do not fire, hold on." But the soldiers hear fire in one ear and don't fire in the other ear. One of the young soldiers, Zakim Bridge, he got knocked down and his gun went off. Whether it's on purpose or as an accident, we'll never know, but his gun discharged and went ahead. The other soldiers heard that shot, and fearing for their lives, they opened fire into the crowd. 5 people lost their lives as a result. And folks, that event today is forever known in our American history as the Boston Massacre. The old granary burial ground. This is actually the 3rd oldest burial ground in Boston, dating back to 1660. However, more famous Americans are buried in this small graveyard than any other small one here in the United States. For example, this boulder-shaped one on the very end with the plaque on the front belongs to Samuel Adams. And how fitting, directly next to him are the 5 victims of the Boston Massacre. Paul Revere's buried here. John Hancock, Robert Treat Paine, another signer of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin's parents, and even Mother Goose is buried here in the old granary. Well, at least America's take on it. Folks, in the very center, in the very back, there's what looks like a small white pedestal amongst all those gray graves. That's where Paul Revere's buried. This, of course, this very tall, skinny grave closest to the church, that's John Hancock's grave. I swear, the man could not do anything small in this life or the afterlife, whether it's his autograph on the Declaration of Independence or that tombstone. John Hancock. It's Herbie Hancock. Now, it is called the Old Granary because before they built the church here, this is where they would store the grain here in Boston. Now, back in 1809 and 1810, they constructed this beautiful Park Street Church. Upon completion, this church was the tallest building in the entire United States and remained that way for about 20 years. What I like about it, it was on those very same steps. On the 4th of July, 1831, "My Country 'Tis of Thee" was sung for the very first time here at this church by the children's choir. "My Country 'Tis of Thee" went on to be America's pseudo-national anthem for about 100 years, until 1931, when the Star-Spangled Banner officially became our country's national anthem. And now, folks, it's time for First in America with Captain Matty. This time here on the left, I'm talking about the oldest public park in the United States, established in 1634, the Boston Common. When the Puritans first moved here, being British, they said, you know, we should get a common place for the people to gather, like all the towns of England. They went to the very first European settler of Boston, William Blackstone, and from him, they purchased 50 acres for public park use, mostly for grazing cattle. And of the 50 acres they purchased, 48 are still being used as a public park today. So it's pretty much the same size as it was in 1634. Just a lot less now. Now, folks, over here on my right, we are going to be talking about the State House a little bit later in our journey. Don't believe me, I'm not ignoring it. I'm saving that for the good stuff later. But I do want to call attention to 122 Bowden Street here on my right-hand side. That was the physical address of this man right here.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Even though he never lived there, that was the address for his election headquarters. It was his mailing address throughout the election. And it also happened to be the address on his driver's license when he was killed in Dallas, Texas. All right, well, we went up Beacon Hill, so we came down Beacon Hill. Now, over here on my right-hand side, folks, that is Government Center Plaza. That's City Hall Plaza. That's where the city of Boston does all of its government work from over there. Now, wasn't always there, though. This part of town, throughout the 19th century, into the mid-20th century, this was known as Scully Square. This was the happening place to be in all of Boston. You wanted a good time, you went down to Scully Square. Whether it was to catch a comedian at the theater, at the Old Howard Theater, or if you wanted to catch a good vaudeville show, a good burlesque show, you wanted a good time, Scully Square, that was the place. Now, even though for the last 60 years it has been City Hall Plaza, there's still many a Bostonian who alive and well, because they can probably tell you about the good times they had at Scully Square. Coming up on my right, folks, is the Old West Church. This church dates back to the 1700s. It was a wooden structure in the 1700s. In 1775, British soldiers burned that wooden church down. They suspect it was being used for spy techniques like the old North Church was being used. In 1806, they built a brick structure in instead, so that building's well over 200 years old. And it was on election day in 1960. The church hosted as a voting location for the city of Boston. You can walk inside the church's basement, cast your vote for the president on that Tuesday. Well, on that Tuesday, JFK did show up at the church's basement and he cast his vote there. My team is still doing research as to who we think he voted for that day. Probably was not Nixon, though. We are traveling down Cambridge Street, my friends. Now, even though we aren't going to Cambridge, doesn't mean we can't talk about it. Now, Cambridge was actually founded in 1630, just like its sister Boston. Except Cambridge was found under a different name, Newtown. And for the first 8 years of its existence, that's what they referred to it as, Newtown. It also served time as the capital of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Well, in 1638, the residents of Newtown got together and said, guys, we got to do something about that name. It looks bad on postcards, it's bad for publicity. I mean, no one wants to live in a Newtown. They want something familiar. They all looked at each other. They said, wait, didn't we go to school together at Cambridge University in England? The whole assembly had gone to Cambridge together. It has a nice ring to it. So in 1638, they ceased calling it Newtown. It's been Cambridge ever since. To Boston, where it has been ever since as well. Now, friends, coming up on medical procedures got their start here. And actually, if you look at the top of Anderson Street here on my right, you'll see the original hospital building that opened its doors in 1821, 100 years ago. 200 years old. Coming up next, my friends, we're going to be passing by the campus of the Liberty Hotel. I love the Liberty Hotel. The name is done all in irony. Because when you see it, you'll realize For the longest time, it was definitely not a hotel. For over 150 years, it was a jail here in Boston. And when you see it, you'll see it still has prison bars on the windows. It's fantastic. Now, inside the Liberty Hotel, there's a great restaurant. I kid you not. It is called The Clink. And the name of their bar is The Alibi. But it's where the drunk tank was, so you died in the jail cells. It's fantastic. And it's also worth noting, about 5 years ago, there was a survey going on here in the United States looking for the 50 most delicious pizzas. One representative per state. Massachusetts? Boston won for Massachusetts at the Liberty Hotel. Their lobster pizzas and all that honor. So, Liberty Hotel is definitely a great treat, that's for sure. Of course, with the cost that it costs to stay there for a night, you might as well go to jail. Longfellow, the famous American author and poet, the man who gave us that poem about the midnight ride of Paul Revere. That bridge is named in his honor. Also has quite a peculiar nickname, the Salt and Pepper Shaker Bridge. Why Salt and Pepper Shaker Bridge? Those turrets might give you a good indication of why they refer to it as such. It does indeed cross over the beautiful Charles River. Now folks, believe it or not, the Charles River was discovered by John Smith. The same John Smith who Pocahontas rescued from death in 1607 in Virginia. Now, while he was in Virginia, he suffered a very bad accident. He had to go back to England to heal. Upon healing, he decided he wanted to come back to the New World, do some more exploring. This time he came up to this region. He's actually the man who is given credit for coining the term New England. And he actually did come across the beautiful river. Initially was going to call it the Massachusetts River, and on the Massachusetts Indians. However, his big mistake came when he reported his findings back to Prince Charles. You can guess how that conversation went down. Because for the last 400 years, it has been the Charles River. Speaking of Charles, let's take a stroll down Charles Street, a.k.a. Antiques Row. So-called Antiques Row, they got over 35 antiquity stores up and down this strip. Some of these stores have been open since 1905 and are still serving their wares today. Now, if anyone ever wondered what post office Cliff Clayton worked at on Cheers, it happened to be the Charles Street branch over here, right, where the flag is behind the truck. Now, one of the many things I love about Charles Street, folks, is the fact that the shopkeepers are not allowed to have electric and neon signs to help preserve that antiquity look. So, what they did do, they went medieval, and I mean that literally. Most of the shopkeepers cut and designed their signs to be in the shape of what their business advertises. And, for example, if you want to stop by the nail salon, you look for the nail clippers here on the right. If you want the paper store, we got the Black Ink Well sign here on the left. The leather shop, leather boot sign. And if you want the chiropractor, just look for that creepy sign over here on the right. Don't worry, we're not going by the proctologist. So, ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we're going to be at our stop number 7. This is going to be for Charles Street, the Charles Street Meeting House, Antiques Row. Also, it is easy access to stop 6 Cambridge, as well as easy access to stop 14 Beacon Hill. So, if you wanted to see the sights of Beacon Hill on foot, you can definitely do so from this stop as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching stop number 7. Careful coming down, ladies. my friend the Duke. Please pay attention.
Well, howdy there, pilgrims. While you're on our little buggy here, please don't smoke those cigars or drink that whiskey. And stay in your saddles at all times. Keep your arms and legs in, and you better watch out for those low-hanging branches. They'll test your true grit.
Waka waka. Now, folks, another fun thing I love about Charles Street, if y'all look on either side of the trolley, you might notice these gas lanterns. You might be wondering, why are they lit in broad daylight? Legend says, ever since 1912, these lanterns have been lit 24 hours a day, every single day. The reason why? In 1912, Boston did the math. Turns out it was cheaper to just leave the gas on instead of paying people to light and extinguish them and have the gas on. Well, the city of Boston fired all those people, eventually replaced these with permanent wigs. Now, as far as I know, for the last 109 years, they've left the gas continuously running here on Charles Street. I ain't never seen it completely dark down here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if you be so kind, please repeat after me. Hey, Maddie! Take me to a place where everybody knows my name. Folks, it does exist. Coming up next is stop number 8, where it all happened, where it all got started, where everyone knows your name, and it's a pretty good restaurant too. We're about to be coming to Cheers. Also, it is from the world-famous Boston Public Garden here on my left, and legendary Beacon Street before us, home of the Brownstone family mansion. Get a really good view of Victoria, Boston. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling into number 8, Cheers. A little bit more forward. I guess Sam is here. The gate's open. So hold on, folks, and we'll pull forward just a little bit more. Give everyone a nice, decent view of Cheers. They usually open at 11 o'clock, man. Unless Norm is already there, so. Number 8. Yeah, I guess it is a little early, though. All right, folks, in that case, we're going to leave Cheers now. The world-famous TV show Cheers, one of the greatest sitcoms of all time, created in 1982 by the Charles brothers. That was a good year. I was created that year, too. So it was created in 82 by the Charles brothers. They went to NBC with the idea that the Boston bar scene would make a hilarious sitcom. NBC agreed. They chose the Bull and Finch Pub down those stairs to be the location for the fictional Cheers bar. That means all the show's outside shots, including the episode where Cliff Clavin chases one of our Old Town trolleys because he thinks he knows Boston better than we do. Watch it on Peacock, Season 10, Episode 10. It's great. We were shot on the street and on the corner back then. Now, it did take Cheers a while to find its footing. In fact, it finished dead last of every show on television after that first season. It was almost canceled. But NBC held on. We're so glad they did. For the next 10 years, the show would go on to dominate the ratings. It becomes the #1 show on television. And let's face it, y'all, one of the greatest theme songs of all time.
Taking away in the world today.
Takes everything you've got. Feel free to sing it, there's no shame.
Taking a break
From all your worries, sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see trouble are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. You want to go where people know. in Massachusetts, mostly thanks to these brownstone beauties we're surrounded by. These brownstones, like the buildings on Charles Street, they are preserved and protected by the government. The outside facades can never be altered, never changed, never updated. They are forever preserved on the outside in the 19th century. So as we go down Beacon Street, it's just like going back to the 1800s and seeing the streets in heyday. Now, folks, behind the buildings to our right, of course, is the beautiful Charles River. Now, along the banks of the Charles, there's a beautiful park. It's called the Esplanade. Now, the Esplanade was designed really with one purpose in mind. It was designed for the people of Boston to take a break, get away from the noise of the traffic, get away from the hustle of the city, take a walk along the beautiful Charles and relax. Nowadays, the Esplanade does have a dual purpose. Every 4th of July, the Boston Pops are performing on the Esplanade. They got a great symphonic and pop sound. And the city of Boston ignites fireworks to the music. Unfortunately, we missed them. They're on the Esplanade the last 2 years. Hopefully next year they will return with no issue. But every time they do their 4th of July concert, they will always conclude by playing this song. Sorry, y'all, that's the only free sample I can get here. Now, folks, as we cross over these intersections, look off to your left and enjoy the beauty that is the Back Bay. It really is nothing but a giant literal bay of the Charles River.
This is the Back
See, they
Bay,
discovered centuries ago the Charles River off to our
one of
right.
the most
It had a
coveted
tide throughout this region.
real
At high
estate
tide,
holdings
everything before me is all
in
underwater.
Boston.
But at low tide, the water was so low you could actually
It's
walk
right
on
next
the
to the
ground.
Charles River.
It resulted in 2 separate bodies of water. So they said, let's build a mill dam. Let's power all the mills from Boston down to Watertown, and hey, we'll make it a toll road. So underneath Beacon Street is that old mill dam. Unfortunately, it was a failure. Nobody was taking that toll road. It wasn't
These are
really
all
powered the
heritage
mill like
buildings.
they
You
had
cannot
hoped for.
alter
But
the
now you
outside
have an
facade
enormous
in
byproduct.
any way.
You have a lot of stinky, stagnant water on this side of the dam that people have been using as a toilet for centuries. It can no longer flush into the Charles River as it is done every day, twice a day, for millennia. And every year it gets more and more disgusting. People are starting to get very sick. Finally, Boston has enough. And in 1857, they began their full swing of their Back Bay project. For the next 50 years, every hour, every day, 35-car trains come rolling into Boston, loaded with landfill, lumber, sand, debris, wood, gravel, you name it. And y'all, block by block, slowly but surely, after about a 50-year span, layer by layer, they removed all. The city of London has a giant clock. We have a giant gas station sign. Up in the sky up ahead, folks, is that world-famous Citgo gas station sign. How in the world could a gas station sign become world-famous? Well, back in the early days of television, when television first came on the scene and more homes had sets, whenever there was coverage of Boston, especially for a Sox game, you really couldn't watch coverage without seeing that sign move its head somewhere. Especially in the 1960s, when it became that current size and shape. It just became synonymous with Boston. It became so synonymous, in fact, that back in the 1970s, the Citgo company was going to take the sign down. I mean, there's no gas station underneath it. Very expensive to maintain it, so why bother? Boston got up in arms, said, you will not tear that sign down. It means too much to this community. They made that gas station sign a historic landmark to ensure it would never be torn down. Good grief. Now, folks, we have made it to Massachusetts Avenue. This is the longest street in the Commonwealth, so it is rightfully named so. We are going to be turning left. But as I make the left-hand turn, I encourage you to look to your right, because you will see the beautiful Harvard Bridge. It does connect Boston to Cambridge. And when you know it, there's a school at the bottom of the Harvard. Someone said Yale. But yes, folks, as I make this left-hand turn, you will see the Harvard Bridge and the parts of the campus of MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Home to the students, who I also call MIT's Millionaires in Training. And it's rightfully earned so. That school is incredibly difficult to get into. It's even more difficult to get out of the school with a diploma. Now, MIT was actually found in Boston, in the Back Bay, in 1861. And went into full swing in 1865 once the Civil War was done. Students started attending. And by 1916, the school had actually relocated to its current position at the bottom of the Harvard Bridge at Cambridge. The Harvard Bridge itself is very unique. It is measured not in feet, not in yards, not even with the metric system. It is measured in smoots. Back in 1958, a guy named Oliver Smoot was pledging a fraternity at MIT. The fraternity said, "All right, Ollie, we'll let you in, but first, you have to measure the Harvard Bridge." Ollie says, "Fine." And they say there's a catch. You cannot use a known form of measurement. Giving it some thought, Oliver Smoot goes back to the fraternity. He says, "All right, guys, we're going to measure this bridge in smoots. I will be the ruler." So one night, they take Oliver Smoot to the Harvard Bridge. He lays down. They measure him up. They pick him up. They move him down. They drop him. They measure him up. This carries on throughout the night. They finally get to the bottom of the Harvard Bridge. He lays down. They measure him up. Both the cities of Boston and Cambridge officially recognize the Harvard Bridge to be measured in smoots and in smoots only. They don't accept any other measurement. The exact length of the Harvard Bridge is 364.4 smoots and an ear. No word yet on the length of the ear. That is classified by the fraternity. However, a smoot is exactly 67 inches. Now, folks, both the cities of Boston and Cambridge combined, there are over 70 colleges, universities, and trade schools. One of my favorites is actually here on the corner, the Berkeley College of Music. Founded in 1945 by a man named Lawrence Burke. Later, they had the school named after his son Lee, and Berkeley College of Music. And believe it or not, folks, even though it only has a day student count of about 5,500, this is the largest independent school of music on earth. Many a Grammy award-winning artists they got their start at Berkeley. That held the police cars, Barn Grill, a really good one. Get their rodeo prize. However, folks, as you can see, ladder 50.
And keep your mitts and mugs inside, see? Smoking is bad news. So are dames and drinking, so don't mess with them. You may not believe me now or tomorrow, but someday, for the rest of your life, you will know that I'm right.
Alright, folks, we're going to get a little bit deeper into the beautiful Back Bay. Now, friends, over here on my right, we do have the Christian Science Plaza. This is actually the world headquarters for that faith. Now, the Church of Christian Science was founded in 1866 by a woman named Mary Baker Eddy from New Hampshire. She's quite a pioneer. She's one of only 10 women in recorded history who's been given credit for finding and establishing a world-class faith. That faith being the Church of Christ Scientists. And this campus serves as the world headquarters. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're rolling right now to stop number 10. This is for the Christian Science Plaza, the Museum of Fine Arts, Symphony Hall, the Isabella Gardner Stewart Art Museum. Ladies and gentlemen, we're rolling into number 10 right now. Number 10. Alright, folks, we're going to leave number 10. What comes after 10? It must be 11. 11 is coming up next, folks. This is our one-stop shop location coming up. Stop 11. This is for Conley Place. Hall. And when you're done with that, you just make cross this bridge into the Prudential Center for even more shopping. So it truly is a one-stop shop location here in Boston. And it really does my heart good to see all the Boston Marathon banners going up. We are indeed holding the race this year, holding it on October the 11th. And this year will be the 125th Boston Marathon. Ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling in now to stop number 11. Artist who never lived.
John Singleton Copley, a brilliant artist.
Before the American Revolution, the man had such a gift and talent. He's able to get people's likenesses in his portraits and his paintings, really in a way unmatched by any contemporary. I mean, it was incredible. He painted several portraits of our American forefathers. Some of his portraits and paintings are on display at the Museum of Fine Arts. To give folks this incredible sights to see. Ironically, though, Mr. Copley was a loyalist, did not agree with Americans wanting to separate from England. At the start of the American Revolution, he saw there was no turning back, so he and his wife did quietly bow out. They moved to England, and they pretty much lived out the rest of their lives in England. But to honor him for his works and contributions to the arts, today here in Boston, we do honor Mr. Copley. We honor him with a place, plaza, square, hotel, and a beautiful statue of him in the square. My younger trolley guests, they know that this is the Hotel Tipton from the Sweet Life of Zakim Bridge on the Disney Channel. Over here on my left here, this is the Boston Public Library. This is the oldest, large, free-lending library of the United States. Being a library, you can actually walk in, check out a book, and walk right out. The library was founded in 1848. The building here built about 1888. About 4 years to complete, so completed by about 1892. And just how big is the library? There are over 30 million items inside Boston Public. Also, it's the only library in the United States that has a presidential library. President John Adams. His president's library is in the rare books items of Boston Public. Beautiful. Now, speaking of beautiful, not too many buildings are more beautiful than this, folks. Coming up on my right is the world-famous Trinity Church. Since 1877, this church continuously ranks and is voted as one of the 10 most beautiful churches of the United States every single year. Those stained glass windows, nothing short of glorious. The designs of Henry Hobbs Richardson are just so unique, so one of a kind. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to approach stop number 12. This is for the Trinity Church, Newberry Street, the Boston Marathon finish line, the Boston Public Library, the Old South Church, and beautiful Copley Square here on my right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to roll to stop number 12.
I'd like to see it. I don't know if it's great.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it a lot more.
Number 12. Be careful coming down. Just watch your steps. Have a great time. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you gotta see if you can get them.
Okay, man.
It's the Trinity Church, always voted the most beautiful church in the United States.
I really love how they did this bus stop. This was literally done overnight. They just transformed it, turned it into a beautiful scene. Really makes me want to go camping. Really makes me want to go out and buy a Chevrolet. I just love it. So we're going to leave the Back Bay. We're going to head back toward the open neighborhoods of Boston. And folks, another fun thing I love about the Trinity, we're going to get a really good view of the next other side of the Trinity around here now. But the one thing I really love about the Trinity, this is the only structure in the entire Back Bay that is correctly built on the layers of landfill that are underneath it. Underneath the Trinity, the primary landfill is thousands of wood pilings. Now, in order for those wood pilings to remain strong, they have to constantly be saturated with water, or else they'll dry rot, they'll crumble apart, and it becomes a big mess. Well, when they built the church, they built everything so precisely with those wood pilings in the water. Not once since 1877 have they ever had to dig underneath the church's foundation to fix the landfill. So this is the only structure in the entire Back Bay that is correctly built. Now, there's a constant water supply. I can't remember if it comes from the Charles or where that source actually comes from. I know it's not the original Back Bay water because that was all contaminated. But there is a constant flow of water, and it flows precisely with all the wood. Now, friends, this glass behemoth coming up on my right-hand side used to be known as the John Hancock Tower. It's now known as 200 Clarendon Street. Currently, the tallest building in Boston, over 740 feet tall. Each of those individual window panes weighs over 500 pounds apiece. Now, back in the 1970s, when this building was under construction, there was a day where some gale force winds over Boston. Those winds were so powerful, they knocked out over 60 of those 500-pound panes. Thankfully, not one person got hit. Now, folks, I always have such a huge sense of pride that Boston is responsible for many of the firsts here in the United States. And Boston subway is no exception. Boston's got the oldest subway in the United States and the fourth oldest subway on Earth, behind London, Glasgow, and Budapest. Now, back in the 1950s, a folk music group known as the Kingston Trio, they were influenced by Boston subway. They wrote a song about it, about a guy named Charlie. The story goes, Charlie was riding Boston subway. Suddenly, he realized he did not have the necessary nickels that he would need in order to get off the subway. As a result, they would not let him off the subway. They forced the poor guy to forever ride under the streets of Boston. Let me tell you the story of a man named Charlie on the track. Yeah, tell him again. He pretended to his mom to his life and family when you ride on the MTA. But did he ever return to go? He never returned to stay. He saved his day of running. He may ride the rail beneath the streets of Boston. He's a man who never returned. And folks, that is the reason why, when you purchase a transportation ticket for the city, they call it the Charlie card. Now you know. Right now, folks, I think it's time for a change of scenery, and scenery would be the appropriate word. Ahead before me does lie Boston's historic theater district. For Boston, established in 1908. Now, what makes this school so unique is that it was founded initially in 1908 by women, for women, at a time when women had little to no rights in the States, would not even have the right to vote for another 12 years. But a group of women and their male tutors, their male allies, they went before the city of Boston and said, we have enough students now, we want to learn the law. We want to be lawyers and judges. We want to earn the law degree. The city of Boston forwarded everyone. sided with the women, allowed them to open up the school to earn their law degrees. Now, when they relocated here to the theater district, it did make sense because the school's name was the Portia School of Law in honor of Portia, the Shakespearean heroine. The woman who dressed like a man so she could defend her husband's best friend Antonio in a court of law when women were not allowed to do so from the Merchant of Venice. So, ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we're going to be approaching lucky number 13. Number 13 will bring us to the Boston Common, the theater district, the world-famous Boston Public Garden, and Chinatown. Also, folks, if anyone wants to see the sites of stop number 14, since we will not be allowed to physically stop there, so for example, the beginning of the Freedom Trail that is on the Boston Common, this would be the perfect location to do so for that as well. So 13 and 14 are coming up right now, my dears. Next to the statue of Edgar Allan Poe, coming up on my right. And yep, it's a life-size statue. All right,
The statue of Edgar Allan Poe.
How we doing? That's me. Come on in.
And this is Chinatown.
Morning, ma'am. How are you today? That's me. Yep, come on in. I got room for two. How we doing, ma'am? Yes, please. Perfect, just like that. Morning, sir.
Scan that and they'll print out your handwriting stuff.
One statue from us, never more. Now, folks, over here on my left, it's time for another First in America with Captain Matty. This time I'm talking about the oldest public botanical garden in the United States, established in 1837, the world-famous Boston Public Garden. Normally home of the world-famous swan boat, which was part of the public garden since 1877, but alas, we are beyond Labor Day. Every Labor Day, the swan boats do retire for the duration of the winter. So since the swans are away, I want to give y'all some ducklings. How about the ducklings from the world-famous children's book, Make Way for Ducklings? Over here on my left, in this clearing, by the park benches, you can see the statues of Mother Mow and her ducklings, Jack, Cack, Whack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack. Yeah, rack, sack, and tack weren't available. The world-famous children's book written by Robert McCloskey. He did base his story here in Boston in the public garden, which is why we do have those duckling statues. And now, folks, we're going to climb legendary Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill is without a doubt the most coveted place to live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Always has been. Ever since 1630, the very first European settler of Boston, William Blackston, he lived up here, actually had an orchard up here. John Hancock also lived up here. So it's always been that seat of power. That's my best guess why our capital is at the top. Now, my favorite story about Beacon Hill, when these houses were first being built in the very early 1800s, the glass manufacturer for the windows, he makes too much manganese oxide. When the sun started pouring into the windows, it started turning some paint purple. Now, first this upset homeowners, but over time they started to see it as a status symbol. No one else in the world, but the prestigious people of Beacon Hill, had those purple painted glass, the lavenders, as they become known as. And suddenly, before you knew it, everybody wants lavender paint because Beacon Hill's got them. The orders start to come in left and right. The man stood to make what was today millions for that mistake. But he really could not repeat the same mistake twice, no matter how hard he tried. He died of broken and turned to do so. No one else could replicate the lavender formula either. So the very few lavender paints that have survived the last 200 years, they are extremely rare. Only 6 houses actually still have some of those paints. As a matter of fact, this house, door number 40, here on my left, one directly above the door and right under to the side of it as well. Also, door 39, there's one in the bottom left corner of that central pane. The old lavender, that's truly own a piece of American history. Now, folks, over here on my right, that is the last surviving pond on Boston Common. It's the Frog Pond. It's so called the Frog Pond because at one point it was full of snakes, but mostly frogs. Not so much these days. These days, it's actually a clean, filtered water system during the winter time. Get ready for the winter because it's going to freeze over. It'll be a beautiful ice skating rink for Boston. During the summertime, people do like to walk and wade through the Frog Pond, try to find some relief from the heat. Now, ladies and gentlemen, normally we would be pulling into our stop number 14, but as you can see up ahead, it is completely overgrown with our state flower, the orange cone. So unfortunately, we are forced to continue on. But we are still going to drive by and see the sight. Now, coming up here on my left, folks, we do have the Massachusetts State House. This is our capital. All the laws and legislation for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they are made here. Building first built in 1797. The original building completed in 1798. The addition of the wings throughout the 19th century. Now, the State House does free tours Monday through Friday. So, if you want to take a free tour, just report to the hooker entrance right here on the left. I'm talking about General Joseph Hooker. What are y'all thinking? Sinners. Well, we've been up Beacon Hill. We might as well come on down Beacon Hill. Now, do I have any Harry Potter fans on my trolley? A couple of you? You heard of platform 9 3/4? This is building 10 1/2. That is 10 1/2. This is the Boston Athenaeum. That is the oldest private subscription library in the United States. It's been in Boston since 1811. Now, friends, coming up next, we're going to be passing by the Omni Parker House Hotel. It is the oldest continuously ran hotel in the United States. Been in business since 1855. Many a famous person have gone through the doors of Omni Parker House. Charles Dickens had an apartment here for several months. The hotel still has his lock and key. In 1912, a young man named Ho Chi Minh was a baker for the Omni Parker House. In the 1940s, a young man named Malcolm Little, he would later be Malcolm X, he was a busboy here. And President John F. Kennedy, before he became president, announced his engagement to Miss Jackie Bouvier here in 1953. My favorite thing about the hotel, the Boston cream pie was invented here. Parker House rolls too, but mostly the Boston cream pie, the official state dessert of Massachusetts. Now, friends, coming up on my right is my favorite building on this entire tour. I'm talking about the Red Brick Beauty here on my right, built in 1727, the Old South Meeting House. Now, it's at this former church on December 16, 1773. Patriots and Sons of Liberty attended a meeting with the rest of Boston. When the meeting was over, they went to go commit the act that becomes known as the Boston Tea Party. Y'all, the Tea Party is my absolute favorite story. I can't wait to share it. Just as soon as we drive by the oldest Chipotle ever here on the left. Built in 1718. Well, at least that house was anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell y'all my favorite story. The Boston Tea Party took place December 16th, 1773. The reason why it happened? The people of Boston had had it. Just like the events that led to the Boston Massacre a few years prior. For the past several years, Parliament in England was passing various acts on the American colonies. Again, later on here in Boston, after the Tea Party, they start calling them the Intolerable Acts, ways of raising prices and taxes on everyday goods and services to pay off debt. So needless to say that the sight of these British soldiers reinforcing these very unpopular acts, they weren't exactly a welcome sight here in the colony, especially here in Boston. And on March 5th, 1770, it came to a boil over. Now, folks, I want to take a moment to pause because I can't help but point out, on this side of the line, we're in autumn. On that side of the line, it's winter. On this side of the line, it is Boston. On that side, you can see the sign for New York City. That's the film set for the new Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell Christmas movie they're filming here in Boston right now. Now, in December of 1773, watch on my left, friends. There we go. In accordance with the Tea Act passed that previous spring, 3 ships had arrived in the Boston harbor: the Eleanor, the Dartmouth, the Beaver. They're carrying chest after chest full of tea from the East India Trading Company. Now, folks, don't get me wrong. The colonists enjoy the tea. It's really not that expensive either. The problem is the Tea Act that's been placed, it's a bailout for the East India Trading Company. Now, the colonists are the ones forced to pick up the tab. How so? They can now purchase this tea and this tea only. They can no longer get the cheaper Dutch tea. They can only purchase this tea and pay that excise tax. And they know if the tea comes off the boats within 20 days, they're going to be forced to pay. But they also knew this. They knew if the tea did not come off the boats, customs could claim it, have the tea sent back. It happened in New York, Charleston, and Philadelphia. You think that would work here? So they petitioned the governor. They say, Governor Hutchinson, you know, we're good. Thanks, but no thanks. We don't want the tea. In fact, we're pretty sure in 250 years this place will drink nothing but Dunkin' Donuts coffee anyway. So we need you to speak to Parliament, speak to the King. Just do something for your people. We don't want the tea. By December 16th, it had been 19 days, and they had still not come off the boat. People in Boston think you're in the clear. There's only 1 day left to the statute of limitations. There's a meeting going on at the Old South Meeting House to discuss the matter. It's being led by Samuel Adams. But during the meeting, at the last possible second, word came back from the governor. And to paraphrase, the word was basically this: the tea is going to be unloaded off the boats tomorrow, so get over it. It does not settle well with the patriots in attendance. In fact, Sam Adams concludes his part of the meeting by saying this famous quote:
"There is nothing more a meeting can do to save this country."
By the way, that's the actual audio of Sam Adams. Only Captain Maddox gets you authentic 1773 audio. But y'all, there was nothing more a meeting to do when action would take place. Action is what the patriots. They start making their way down to Griffin's Port where the ships were located. They stop inside this Dunkin' Donuts for one more refresher before they go down. But they're going about this quietly and secretly because they knew if they caught caught for this act they were about to commit, they would be charged with treason, and every one of them hung from the neck until dead. Quietly, they make their way to Griffin's Port. Some of the men had disguised themselves like old buffaloes. They put feathers in their hair. They wore blood on their face and body to help further their disguise. They go down to Griffin's Port. They go on board the 3 ships, and they find the tea. And for the better part of 3 hours, those patriots tossed 340 chests, about 90,000 pounds of tea, 45 tons, worth today about $1.7 million. And y'all, that act does become simply known as the Boston Tea Party. Now, I am really grateful at our final stop of 15, the city does have this Tea Party Ships Museum. By far, folks, the best historic museum in Boston, bar none. They are open today. They are going to be closed tomorrow and Wednesday, so if you'd like to visit the Tea Party, definitely recommend at some point today or Thursday. Absolutely amazing. And I'm talking to my sales reps, they get a big discount for it too. That's incredible. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to approach our final stop on this journey, stop number 15. This will be for the Tea Party Ships Museum and the Children's Museum, and as well as into the seaport. After this, we are going back to stop number 1 to start a brand new trolley tour. Have a great day, ma'am. Thank you very much for that. That's my pleasure. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, just pass the light there. Enjoy. Yeah, right here at this location, ma'am.
Bye, guys. Have a good time. How's that tea with pride?
Yeah.
Y'all enjoy yourself, too. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Now we're going to go back.
All right, folks, we're going to do one more quick safety reminder. Now, this one's going to come from my friend Richard, so please pay attention to Richard for me.
My fellow Americans, may I have your attention, please? You know, when we're moving, please stay in your seats and keep your body parts inside at all times. Watch out for low-hanging branches. They can obstruct justice. I mean the view. You see, we want to make things here perfectly clear. Another thing, no smoke.
And just go report to the Harbor Cruise Gate, gate number 2. They are departing at 12, 2, and 4. It is not exclusive to the day when you ride the trolley, though, so you don't have to use it today if you'd like to save it for another day. Also, my friends, at stop number 1, there is a public restroom. I will most likely beat you to it. But yes, folks, if you need to take care of business before carrying on, by all means do so at stop number 1. Now, folks, ahead in the distance, you'll notice these giant buildings ahead. They are the buildings of the Financial District. This is where the money comes from, and I mean that literally. Because within the Financial District, Boston has the first Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. It's where the money literally comes from. See, folks, a lot of people don't know this. Financially, the United States is divided into 12 districts. And there's one Federal Reserve Bank that governs the currency for each district. So, for example, when they print the money in Washington, D.C., they send the dollar bills first to the 12 federal banks all over the country. The 12 banks will send their dollars to the districts they're in charge of. Boston has the first bank in charge of the entire northeast of the United States. So the question remains, how would you know if a dollar bill came from Boston? It's very simple. Now, when you take a dollar, when you take a dollar, and any denomination will have it, on the front, there's a series of 3 numbers, the serial number. The numbers are preceded by a letter. If you have a 5 or higher denomination, there are 2 letters. Just look at the second one. Each of the 12 banks is assigned the letter A through L. In my case, the letter A. The letter tells you where that dollar bill came from. Now, since we are in Boston, well, duh, then we know. The letter is going to be the letter A. That's right. Boston has a giant white building that looks like winter wine over here on my far left. But A is Boston, B is New York, C is Philadelphia, all the way to the letter L, San Francisco. My letter K is Dallas. Oh, and by the way, folks, if you're looking to try a lobster roll while you're here in town, hop off the trolley and stop 1. Come back 4 blocks to this trailer here on the right with the red umbrellas. The James Hook Lobster Company. That's the best lobster roll ever. Both mayo and mustard and butter. Just tell them Captain Matty sent you. We'll know what you mean. But on a cool day like today, a good warm cup of clam chowder or lobster bisque. I love supporting local business. They've been around for almost 100 years. They know what they're doing. I strongly recommend their business. And Secret Nature Thing, they got hot dogs. They got something for everybody. So definitely encourage them. With that said, my dears, we are approaching, we are 4 blocks from stop 1. I do have to retire this tour. I have some final parting words. My CEO, Chris Moran, please pay attention.
Welcome aboard. Hello, my name is Chris Moran. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Historic Tours of America and the Chief Conductor. Maybe you've heard about us or even taken our tours before. I hope so. One of the best ways for our company to find out how we're doing is to hear from you. I hope you've had a chance to take a look at your ticket. You'll see it is also a comment card. I would like to ask you to do a very special favor for me, as well as for our guests in the future. Just take a minute to fill out this card and tell me what you think about your tour today. It has a place for you to put in your address, who sold you the ticket, where you heard about us, and who your conductor is. Feel free to give us your comments about the tour and anything else you wish. Then, Just drop it in the mailbox and I'll pay the postage. It's very simple, but it's very important to us. It's only when we hear from you, our honored guests, that we're able to improve what we're doing. Also, if you enjoyed your tour, please write a review on TripAdvisor or recommend us to a friend. Old Town Trolley is part of Historic Tours of America family of tours and attractions, and the brochure your conductor is pointing to will tell you more about us, and also how to enjoy our discounted tours and attractions in Boston, Massachusetts, Key West, Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, St. Augustine, Florida, San Diego, California, Savannah, Georgia, and our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Be sure to pick one up on your way out. On behalf of all the cast members of Historic Tours of America, may I say thank you for being with us today.
We definitely do rely on your words, ladies and gentlemen. Your words that keeps us cast members going, let us know what you think we're doing great, what you think we might can improve upon. So folks, when you're done traveling with us, if you'll be so kind to take a moment, please log on to TripAdvisor.com or Yelp, any social media that you might use. Just search Old Town Trolley Tours of Boston. Please write a review of the time you've had with me. Remember, my dears, if you've enjoyed me, I am Captain Maddie. If you didn't enjoy it, my name is Hercules. See what we're going to do? All right, so folks, we are going to be back at stop number 1 momentarily. I'm actually going to be parking to the left at the next stoplight of stop 1 to allow the next trolleys coming into play to line up. So folks, again, if you are starting the trolley loop all over again, you will proceed to the very front trolley in line. That trolley's leaving, so proceed to that trolley that's rolling up. That's the next one that loads, and there are 3 more coming up. So we're going to keep these trolleys constantly going and moving. So that's the next one that is departing. So just proceed to the front and get ready to board the next available trolley. When you go to step down, please watch this step. It will get everybody. This step be tripping everybody. So please be careful.